over on YouTube. Friends, welcome to the room here. I see over 200 have joined us so far. Flip those cameras on and give a wave. We've got a couple awesome presenters here today that we're going to be. Hello, everyone. Look at you all. If you haven't yet, say hello in the chat and where you're from. I know the presenters love knowing where everyone is coming from all over the world. If you feel up to it as well, add what time of day it is. Some people are brave and are up way early, or they're staying up way late, depending on where they're from. My name's Kyle Pierce, and I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping here before I introduce you to both of our presenters. We have Dr. Nicki Newton here today, as well as the wonderful Elise Record, who's going to be helping out with the session here today. And this is our 5th annual virtual summit. So we are super excited to be bringing this to you here today. Before I forget, I've got to hit the record button or else I'm going to be in big time trouble from that Mr. Orr. Here we go. And we are excited to bring this summit to you completely free all weekend long. And we also are looking for folks who are interested in sticking around beyond the weekend because, hey, over 40 sessions is hard to consume all at once. Even if it was actually possible for you to do it, it's going to be hard for you to get all those takeaways and, to allow all of that great information to sort of stick in order to be able to implement. So if you're thinking about it, we encourage you to grab yourself a ticket to extend. There are 2 options. You can go for a week pass for $29, or you can get a month access into our academy, and that includes all of the past summit sessions as well for only $39. So obviously the clear value is the $39 ticket, and it helps us to handle the expenses that go along with hosting over 20,000 registrants and over 40 speakers. So we appreciate you all for taking the time this weekend to help grow your mathematical brains, your pedagogical moves, and your content knowledge alongside us here at Make Math Moments. Note that there are certificates available inside the Summit platform, so definitely take advantage of that. If you do have trouble by the end of the weekend, if there's any challenge, anything like that, no panics, we will help you out. But do note 20,000 folks are in this summit, so it might take us a few days to get to all of the requests. So if there's any hangups, no panic, we've got your back, and we will make sure that we help you along. So check out the attendance certificate section of the website as well. And of course, if you're looking to grow your math program, you can head over to makemathmoments.com/report, and you can take our assessment, which will give you a heads up as to how you can grow the 6 parts of your mathematics classroom or district tree. We have a version for the classroom teacher, as well as a version for leaders, coaches, and superintendents, directors, and so forth. So head on over to makemathmoments.com/report for that. And I'm happy to share with you that we have a license that we'll be giving away because we're going to be featuring Braining Camp and their amazing digital or virtual manipulatives here today. And actually, I know that our wonderful presenters also have a code for you as well that might get you some awesome time with a premium account as well. So someone in this room is going to walk away with a year license, and others are going to have a certain amount of time, be it 30 days, 90. I actually don't know. The ladies are going to surprise you here momentarily. So with that said, my friends, I am super excited to hand it over to our wonderful, wonderful presenters here today. Both Nicki and Annalise have both participated in our summits in the past, and they've also been on our podcast, the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast, on all podcast platforms. We're so excited to bring them back to you here today. So without further ado, my friends and colleagues, are you ready to rock and roll? Here we
Absolutely.
go.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you. Thank you for coming to this session. We're just going to jump right in and get started. I want to talk about before we get into the tools, I just want to set some kind of research, background, right? I think it's really important because people talk about getting kids fluent all the time. And still to this day, I hear people say, man, I wish they just knew their facts. I wish they just knew their facts. And it always reminds me in literacy, we never hear anybody just say, I wish they knew how to say the words. I just wish they could read the words on the page. It doesn't matter if they understand the words. It doesn't matter if they have any comprehension. I wish they could just say the words. They have never said that in reading, but we say it in math all the time. I wish they just knew their facts. I wish they just knew their facts. So we have kids that walk around and know their facts and have no number sense whatsoever, right? So they know facts discreetly, right? And those are the kids that when you say, what's 7 times 8? They say 56. You say, how do you know? They say the poem, right? Or they sing the happy birthday song or something. And then you say, what's 7 times 9? And they say, I don't know. And you say, well, can you use 7 times 8 to help you? And they say, no. Right. So they have no number sense. They just know these kind of isolated facts. So really, when we're saying we want our kids to be fluent, we're saying that we want kids to absolutely understand their facts, understand it with number sense properties, place value, the relationship between the operations. We're saying that fluency is a three-legged stool. We want kids to be flexible, accurate, and efficient. And this graphic you can find on MathBack Fluency Playground under research. So if you're trying to share this with your staffs, it's right there. You can pull it up. And there's all kinds of other stuff on the research about fluency over here in the sidebar. So flexibility, being able to see and think about numbers in different ways, knowing and being able to use different strategies based on the number relationships, properties, and place value. I want to emphasize that, right? Accuracy. And I love this. Gojek said this, past president of MCTM. It's not just getting the right answer, right? It is about the operation, recording the work carefully and asking yourself whether the solution is reasonable, right? And being able to explain what you did. So it's not just getting the right answer, it's being able to explain what you did. And then there's efficiency, which is a way to say that their kids are smooth operators. They have it's a reasonable amount of time without getting bogged down or stuck, right? So technically it's 3 seconds, but nobody really goes by that. It's a reasonable amount of time. So like I do this thing called the running records, and we do 3 seconds, 5 seconds. It's just like, do the kids know it? Or are they taking like prolonged thinking time to come up with it? So as we begin the journey today, I want you to think about, is fluency defined this way in your schools? If you ask 5 people what is fluency, would they say these things, right? And do you teach for kids to be fluent in this way? The other thing I want to point out, and this is throughout the research, but Bay Williams and San Giovanni have really highlighted in their recent series on fluency, that we want kids to understand different strategies, and that we want them to practice using those strategies, and that we want them to be able to select which strategies go with which sets of, given the numbers that they have. So that's really important. And I still don't, I see more and more people doing this. I see fewer people doing this still. So I really want you to capture that. Do you teach for kids, if we're talking about strategic competence, do your kids understand it? Do you have times in the day or times throughout the year where they practice it, ongoing distributed practice, spaced across the year? And do you give them a chance to select? Like, given the numbers that they have, what are they going to do? Right. And so if you read this research stuff, there's a bunch of the other stuff. One thing I do want to point out is there's a whole inventory that you can do with your school to kind of gauge where you guys are at in terms of fluency. All right. I'm going to close these as I go because I have lots of open. I have a really nice PowerPoint, but I decided that I wasn't going to use it. I just want to go to the websites because I'm going to be doing a lot of virtual tools and stuff. So the second thing I want to point out is, this is an article. I tell everybody to read it if you're trying to teach multiplication. It's in the agenda. I'm going to give you the agenda, and it's all got the hyperlinks to everything, but I'm not going to give it to you until the end, because otherwise you're going to go down the rabbit hole. The agenda is a rabbit hole full of all kinds of wonderful things, and I don't want you guys to get lost. I also have a Dropbox full of flashcards, templates, but I'm not going to give that to you right now because I don't want you to go down that rabbit hole either. So, but no, you're going to get it now. But this article is on the agenda. It's by Sharon and Fuson. It was 2005. Now you might think 2005, that was 20 years ago. But I love this article. This is like one of my go-to articles. Everybody should read this article. It's a taxonomy of multiplication strategies. And so they did like a meta study of all the multiplication strategies, and they came up with kind of phases that kids go through. I love this because it gives us the language to describe what our kids are doing. So I think everybody needs to know these kinds of phases. You're going to recognize your kids in this. I'm going to go, this is the part of the article I recommend you read. The article is heavy, heavy, heavy duty research. And even I, who love research, find the article very heavy, heavy, heavy duty research. But start on page 358. That's the way to go because it's all charts. And so everything from the article is summarized in the charts and it tells you what you need to know. So the first phase is kind of count all. How many of you have kids that are here? They're either counting all by drawing like the exact pictures, or I see a lot of kids, even in 4th and 5th grade, doing this, doing the circles and the hashtags. This is all called the counting all phase, is phase 1. Or they'll count on their fingers. First, they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they go into kind of rhythmic counting, where they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like that. So you can see we go to count all and then rhythmic counting. And so if you have, think about, do you have any kids over here in the count all phase? After count all, we go to additive calc. So these are kids that are doing repeated addition, right? And, you go from like repeated addition to like, you get more sophisticated and you can collapse numbers. So you don't have to go 4. You'll go, oh, 4 and 4 is 8, and then 4 and 4 is 8, and then 8 and 8 is 16. So you're like collapsing groups and adding. You're still in the additive calc phase. But so I just want to repeat, you're going from count all to additive. I'm sure you guys have some kids that are in additive. And then count by. This is where kids build forever homes. You're not supposed to build a forever home here. You are supposed to cross the bridge. So counting by, right, skip counting is absolutely part of the process of learning to multiply. It is not where you stay. Right. So we get a lot of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders who are skip counting, and they can skip count within 3 seconds. They've been skip counting so long, they're really quick at it, but they're still skip counting. But if we look at the phases kind of through skip counting, first kids are doing kind of like hashtags, making a full drawing, and then they start doing it with written groups, and then they start doing it on their fingers. Right. I see a lot of kids here. I don't see a lot of kids in these phases, but I see a lot of kids on the count by using fingers. And then there's pattern based. This is the rule stuff. So using the 0 rule, the 1 rule, the 10 rule, and being able to explain it beyond just add a 0, right? But being able to explain it with place value. And then this is really interesting. In this article, they talk about the 9's finger trick, because I always thought that's a trick, don't teach it. But actually, this whole thing like is really based in place value. Nobody teaches it that way, but if you do teach it, you're supposed to teach it, and it's based in place value, and it's actually not a trick. It's based in place value, and you're going to your 10s and pulling back a set. So like when kids go, oh, what is 9 times 6? And then they go, oh, it's 54. What they really should be doing is going 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm not going to do 60, right? Because I'm going to go to 10 and take back a set. So I have 5 10s and 4 1s. So I would never teach this unless kids understood that they're actually going to the 10s and taking back a set, which is a strategy that we want kids to do for their 9s. It's one of the strategies to go to your 10s and take back a set. This is just a manifestation of that. But a lot of kids learn this as like a magic trick. This is not a magic trick. This is a representation of the strategy of going to your 10s and pulling back a set. I'll do one more. So if I want to know what 9 times 3 is, I would really go 10, 20. I'm not going to go 30. So I have 2 10s and 7 ones. I have 27 because I didn't go to 30. I took one set of 3 back, so I have 27, right? It's simply a representation of a deeper strategy. If the kids cannot explain the strategy, they don't need to be doing finger tricks, right? All right. So that's all called pattern based. And then there's learned products when kids actually have learned their facts. And actually, in this article, they make a very, very big deal about the difference between learned and memorized. So, memorized is the example I gave you before, where kids will say, oh, Susie and Kate are skating across the floor. 8 times 8 is 64. Right. They memorized that fact, maybe through a poem, a song, or whatever. And then you say, what's 8 times 9? And they're like, we don't know because Susie and Kate have now left the room. Susie and Kate have now left the room. They have skated out, and we don't know anything about them. And all we know is 8 times 8 is 64. We do not know what 8 times 9 is. So, you want kids to learn their facts, not memorize, but to learn their facts and to understand them through place value properties and the relationship between the operations. That's right out of NCTM. So then there's the learned products, right? And then there's the hybrids, which I find really fascinating. So there's kind of low hybrids and high hybrids. Low hybrids are count by and count all. And you guys have all seen kids that do this. They'll like skip count 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, and then they'll start counting by ones. They'll go 37, 38, 39, 40. Like they don't trust themselves. And so then they start counting by ones. Or there's the count by plus count all. So there's the learned product. So they'll go 6 times 6 is 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 40, right? Learned product plus count all. Or there's the learned product plus additive calc. So they'll say 6 times 7 is 42 plus 7. So they're doing like additive calc is 49 plus 7 is 56. Or there's like distributive property, which is like a high level hybrid, right? So this article, everybody should read it. It is by Shirin and Fusan. I will give you the exact article. You just pull it off you just type in. I usually type in Shirin and Fusan 2005, and then it just pops up and I download it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is multiplication icebergs. I'm very into icebergs. This comes out of ResearchGate. There's a lot of research looking at different icebergs. So it's a way to show a progression. The reason I love this is we often start here. This is where our textbooks start, 3 times 4, right? But this is all the stuff the kids need to know to get there. Right. So if you're thinking like, what are all the interventions? How do I scaffold learning all the way up? This is like phenomenal because icebergs, they have icebergs for everything. They have icebergs for fractions, icebergs for multi-digit addition. There's all kinds of icebergs. If you just go to ResearchGate or if you just Google multiplication iceberg, addition iceberg, it'll come up. But notice what it's saying, that here we have informal notation and we're building conceptual understanding. We see equal groups, we see arrays, we see, actually drawing out equal groups with some sort of context. We see skip counting. We see number lines, which are huge. We then see kind of grouping. We see partial arrays, which nobody uses and everybody should. And then so we work our way. And notice how they've labeled it: informal notation, floating capacity, right? So when you're up here, you have floating capacity. But this is the top of the iceberg, formal notation, right? And then notice they have the area model up here. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that. I just wanted to show you guys that because I think it's important. I want to give you a lot of tools, but I want to give you the research behind teaching multiplication and division in ways that kids can learn it. So those are my kind of plugs for the research. And then I want to show you one more thing. This is going to be this is your Dropbox, and this is a folder in the Dropbox. Everybody will have access to this. I made these folders. They're not folders. They're, I call them trackers, and they're for kids to keep track of where they are on their journey of learning their multiplication tables, right? start with 0, multiplying by 1, tens, fives. And you know, a lot of us, we agree on the general order. Like some people say, teach all the foundational facts first. So 0, 1, and 10 and 5. You always teach 10 and 5 together. Some people teach 2s and 5s together. But I like this trajectory of teaching 10 and 5 together because 10, kids know their tens. You've learned them since kindergarten. And then 5 is half of 10. So if you're teaching strategies, it makes sense to teach 10 and then 5. You know, you teach 0, 1, and then 10, and then 5. And then you teach 2, 4, 8 to and sequentially after they learn their twos, then they learn to double, then they learn to double. And then you teach 3, 6, 9 for similar reasons. And then you teach your sevens. You really teach your sevens last because sevens is where you're bringing it all together. Right. And then I always go over multiplying by squares, and I'm going to show you a book that I use for square numbers. So you guys will have access to this. And then here's another version of that. It's just stair steps and mountains. And there's a black and white version because the idea is that you give it to kids so they can keep track of where they are and where they're going. There's one for there's one for all the operations, but I'm giving you guys the multiplication and division one. So you can see this is the mountain. It's the same thing as the board, right? But it just shows you. And then over here, it has all that stuff we looked at from Sharon and Fuson, right? Counting all, additive calc, count by, pattern based, learn products, and then the hybrids. And then it also has efficiency, accuracy, and flexibility, right? So this is wonderful for kids to have because it's one thing if we say, oh, well, they don't know their multiplication facts. But everybody knows something. So the question is, what do they know? And then where do we go from there? What's next? We tend to do assessment from a deficit perspective. What's everything that they don't know, right? When we really need to say, what do they know? I'm doing this assessment so I can find out what they know. And then from what they know, what is next, right? And so it follows along that kind of assets-based thinking. If I'm trying to assess a kid, and I would assess them with a running record, what is it that they know? Oh, they know their zeros, they know their ones, they know their tens, they know their fives. Great, we're going to start with their twos. Or they know all the way to their twos. Great, we're going to start with their fours. And it's so fun to see a kid who's like, I don't know my fours, but they know their twos, and then you teach them how to double, and then they get their fours like that. The look on their face is priceless, right? When they realize, hey, I can do this, right? Through strategies. So as I said, you guys are going to have access to all of these. I would use them with your kids. So those are a couple of things. All right. Now that this is going to be the agenda. You guys will have the code to the Dropbox. And then what I did was I put pictures of some things because I don't really give out my PowerPoints because I have pictures that I can give out and pictures that I can't. And so I don't, but I put like visual reminders and stuff that you'll want reminders of. All right. With all of that said, we're going to get started. This is tool number 1, picture books. You got to use picture books because we're trying to establish context, and picture books establish context. One of my favorite books all time, The Best of Times by Greg Tang. Why? Because you can pull it up on Tang Math, and he put all his books up for free, and it has the poems. 0 is a cinch to do. The answer's right in front of you. For every problem, it's the same. Zilch or 0 is its name. And then you can put in here and check the answer. And then you can go to the next poem. 1 is simple as can be. It's known as the identity. The answer to identify, it's the one you multiply, right? So it's just poems. I love that book. I also love Amanda Bean's Amazing Dream by, the classic by Marilyn Burns. Some people don't know that book. If you don't know Amanda Bean's Amazing Dream, you absolutely should use that book. If you go on my Pinterest, I have books worth reading, and they're divided by operation. So I have a lot of these books on there. So I think it's really important to use books. I'm just showing you a couple of my favorites. So The Best of Times would be one of my favorites. Now, this is a book that I love, and it's called Bean 13. It's really for 3rd grade, but in some states, a few states, you do remainders even in 3rd, but really in most states, you do remainders in 4th. So this is just a quote from the book. But something still wasn't right. Why does Rocco get 3 beans, complained Ralph. That's more than anyone else. Well, we could give him 2, said Flora. But tell me, said Ralph, but what? It's just that we'll still have an extra bean, said Flora. I'm really not sure why. So this is a great book when you're trying to introduce remainders to kids. Don't just do it with the numbers. Do it with bean 13. It's a great book. It's an old book. It's by McElligott, who also write The Lion's Share, which is another great book you should read. And here's the characters. And so it tells you what the book is about. Ralph warns Flora, don't pick the 13th bean. So what do you think Flora does? She picks the 13th bean. And now they can't divide it. They divide it into two. Well, there's one left over. They divide it into three. They divide it into four. So it's very funny. And it looks at prime numbers. It looks at division. It looks at remainders. You got to read this book if you teach fourth, or whatever grade you're teaching remainders, if you're trying to teach kids remainders. Also, there's a book called Divide and Ride, which is pretty good. I usually have the kids set up 11 chairs, and then the same thing, they're trying to get on rides that you have to have the exact amount of people, and so they're trying to divide 11 people. And that's by Murphy Stewart. So that's thing one that you should absolutely use picture books to set context. And there's a lot of great ones out there. All right, tool number two. This book I use to teach square numbers, and I just want to let people know a little bit about it. And I'm only going to show you some of the pictures. My full moon is square, is what the book is called. And you can get the book now for really super cheap because it's an old book. And so it's about a frog who finished a learn to read course. So he finishes the learn to read course, but then it gets dark one night and clouds cover the moon. And so the fireflies agree to help him because they want to hear the story. All right. So they decide, oh, we've got to help him. Wait, I got to turn it on. Closed his book. Hold on and turn it off. So they decide to help him. And I just want to show you some of the pictures. The pictures are lovely. So they make a square. They make the smallest of squares. And the frog is like, this is nice, but I can't see anything. You're going to have to come closer or more people. So the frog is like, the fireflies are like, we're not coming closer. We don't trust you like that. We're friends, but we're not that good at friends. So they decide to make another square. So then they make a square of 9. And I want to show you what the book does. It's just like the perfect math book. Look at what it does right here. It shows the kids what that looks like. And so it goes on, and he still can't see. And he keeps building square numbers. And then finally, he gets to 10 by 10. It's very funny. And it's like, oh my God, you guys got to back up, lose some rows, or do something. And so anyway, that's why his full moon is square. It's the best book. You have got to read this to your kids when you're teaching square numbers. And it's not just reading the book. Obviously, you got to do the math. So here's Braining Camp. And what I do is I give the kids 1-inch tiles. And after we read the story, we know the story, we go back through and we build the square numbers with the 1-inch tiles. It's just beautiful, right? So that's what I do. And now the other thing that I do is I go to printgraphpaper.com because it's all free, and I print graph paper. And so we go from the concrete of building square numbers to the pictorial of drawing out the square numbers, coloring the square numbers. So I just wanted to show you guys that. So that's number 2, how to teach square numbers. Number three tool is the rekenrek. You got to use the rekenrek if you're teaching. If you're teaching multiplication, you got to use a rekenrek. All right. The rekenrek is underutilized because people think it's for the primary grades. But the rekenrek, you could do so much stuff with fractions, decimals, and just multiplication, especially with the rekenrek. So I'm going to show you. We're 3rd grade. We're at we're at a 2-step story. So look at this story. Farmer John had 3 rows of peach trees. There were 7 peach trees in each row. And if I want to, so that I can remember, you can grab the drawing thing over here. You could put that these are the peach trees and these are the apple trees. So Farmer John had 3 rows of peach trees and there were 7 in each row. And he had 3 rows of apple trees and there were 5 in each row. How many peach trees did he have and how many apple trees did he have and how many trees did he have altogether? It's just beautiful. It just lays it out, right? Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the rekenrek. There's a lot of stuff you can do on the rekenrek. But this is one of the things that I love to do on the rekenrek. I'm going to show you something on the two-strand rekenrek, and then Annalise is going to talk about some stuff that she does on the rekenrek as well. All right, so if I go to the two-strand rekenrek, I use this. I was just talking to my friend Allison about this the other day. And she was like, wow, I never thought of that. And Allison knows all kinds of stuff. But she's like, I never thought of using it for multiplicative comparison. This is the way to go when you teach multiplicative comparison. In Texas, they teach multiplicative comparison in third grade. But in most states, you teach it in fourth grade. So watch this. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to go through it quickly, the 3 multiplicative comparison problems. You say, Janie had 2 marbles. Her brother had 2 times as many. How many did Janie have? How many did her brother have? How many did they have altogether? How many more would Janie need to have the same amount as her brother? It's just very, very visual. Okay. Second problem. This is a problem that all the 4th graders miss on the test, right? Mike had 8 marbles. He had 4 times as many as his brother. How many did his brother have? All the kids multiply because they hear the word times. That's why we never, ever, under any circumstances, teach keywords, right? So, because you want kids to understand the structure, right? Well, what is this word problem saying? We already know the big part. I always tell people, when you're comparing, you're looking for the big part, the small part of the difference. In that first problem, we were looking for the big part. In this problem, we're looking for the small part. We already know the big part. We already know that Mike has 8 marbles. We already know he has 4 times as many as his brother. So the answer cannot be 32 because he already has the big part. He has 4 times as many as his brother. So this is really a division problem, right? And not a multiplication problem. And so then the kids figure out, oh, his brother had 2, right? And then you can go on to multi-set problem. How many did they have all together? How many more would his brother need to have as many as Mike did? You know, all different kinds of questions. But kids can now reason with them because they can visually see it. And then the other piece of this is, if I say, this is the last problem, this is the one that's the hardest for kids. If I say, Mike had 10 marbles and his brother had 2, how many times as many marbles did Mike have as his brother? This is where the kids just jump off the cliff, right? Because the phrase, I'm not even talking English language learners, right? Or multilingual learners. I'm just talking about native speakers. When you start using that kind of language, it just really throws kids. So Mike has 10, his brother has 2. How many times as many marbles does Mike have as his brother? It's a lot of language. Really, what we're saying is, how many 2s can you take out of 10? And kids are like, well, why didn't you just say that in the first place? So let's see how many 2s we can take out of 10. We can take 5. Right. So, and then, we're going to write the symbolic representation of this, but I'm talking about, how do you build concrete understanding, right? When you're talking about multiplication and division. So those are some things I do. Now I do some other things, but I just, we got 10 tools to get through and we're only on the 3rd one. But this is the main thing I do, teaching multiplicative comparison. And people say, oh, but we use really big numbers. But you got to start with small numbers so kids understand what they're doing. And then you can get to the big, huge numbers, 2 and 3-digit numbers. Start with single-digit numbers. Start with small numbers so kids can make sense of the math that they're doing. Marilyn Burns said it. When kids make sense of the math, then they can make sense of math, right? When they understand the math that they're doing, then they can actually do that math and make sense of it. So, Annalise, I'm going to have you say, I think you were talking about using the 10 rekenrek, right?
Well, no, using this one exactly, the same version of the rekenrek, where I would slide over like 4 rows of 6 to ask the students how many are there. So they're seeing the array of the 4 by 6, but then we're aware of, how are they figuring out how many that is? Did they count the beads one by one? Did they skip count? but I can provide that prompt for them. Are there any groups of the beads you know for sure? So the multiplicative reasoning of groups can come out. So if they say, well, I know 2 groups of 6 is 12, then I can easily slide those 2 rows of 6 and know, so that's 12. And then what do we have left? We have another 12, another 2 groups. So that relationship of multiplying by a 4 being double a double can be visual on that record of just sliding it. Another student might say, well, I know 4 groups of 5 is 20. And then there's one more 4. So if I know 5 fours, I can reason about 6 fours. So that relationship conversation can come out to play. And I can flexibly show it using that tool of the variety of ways kids are seeing it. But of course, it's a distributed property multiplication of breaking it apart into partial products. But I love that tool for that reason.
I love it. So don't sleep on the rekenrek and don't think that it's just for the primary grades. And here's some rekenrek paper so the kids, and on the rekenrek paper, there's a big rekenrek and there's a small rekenrek. So kids, you remember you're always wanting kids to interact in different ways, concrete, pictorially, abstractly, right? So the kids, you know, some kids want to draw it out and should be able to draw it out and explain what they're doing. That rekenrek paper is in the folder that I'm going to give you guys. All right, the next tool that I want to talk about is the beaded number line. Now I'm gonna show you something.
You have flashcards next.
Oh, I have flash. I'll go back.
Flashcards that teach.
I'll go back.
Just whatever you want to do.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to flashcards in a second. Can you guys see my beaded number line? Can you guys see my beaded number line? Yes, no. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So this is the beaded number line. Now, you know, I think this is the best tool ever in the world, right? That ever existed. I've made a million videos on it. But I'm going to tell you, the beaded number line, it goes to 100, it has 100 beads. But I don't really teach it for multiplication, but I teach it in terms of skip counting, 2, 4, 6, 8, when we're looking at skip counting. But I do it for division. So I'll ask kids, like, if I have 21, how many groups of 3 can I take out of this? And then I'll have them separate them. How many groups of 7 can I take? How many groups of 8? So we're looking at remainders and stuff like that. So I will use the beaded number line for division more than, I use it for some skip counting and I use it for division. But the truth is, I really use a rekenrek a lot more for multiplication. I'll use the beaded number line, like I said, for skip counting and for division. I also use the beaded number line. I'm gonna lower that and go back to this. This is the beaded number line. It's 10 strands of 10. Everybody should have one in their classroom, from like kindergarten to 5th or 6th grade. But I will use this for the 3rd grade standard of multiplication, where you're multiplying a single digit by a multiple of 20. Because if you have like 3 or 4 of these, then you can do things like, what is, 3 groups of 20? What does that look like? Right. And then the kids can actually find, 3 groups of 20. Or you can say, what is 4 groups of 40? And if you have multiples of these, then kids can figure it out. So I do use this for looking at multiplying a single digit by a multiple of 10. But I just had to mention the beaded number line because it's like my favorite tool. Now, Annalise and I argue about what's the best tool ever in the world. And so we have a Facebook group that has, I think, 17,500 members. It's all about running records, but we do all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in like running records and stuff, you should join, because we give a lot of talks and free PD and stuff on there about teaching operations. But this is us me wearing the beaded number line and Elise holding up Cuisinaire rods because she says that Cuisinaire rods are one of the best tools ever. And I say that the beaded number line is the best tool ever. So that's our ongoing battle. So I invited her today. I would never admit this, but I think that Cuisinaire rods are pretty cool. But I invited her today to talk about Cuisinaire rods because she really has made herself into the resident expert. She knows way more about Cuisinaire rods than I ever will. But I think they're a cool tool. And if your school is more than 20 years old, you have them. Because I have seen them in all schools that are older than 20 years old. I want to say they're somewhere in a box with dust on it, in the basement, in the teacher closet, somewhere somebody has a box of these things that they don't know what to do with, right? Because Cuisinaire rods were as ubiquitous as the bears at one point in the teaching game. And now nobody uses them, but they have not lost their glory, even though I still probably will never admit that. So I wanted Annalise. Annalise has courses on them. She does all these videos on the beauty of the Cuisinaire rod. And because you all probably have them or do need to get them, I'm going to have her talk about multiplication and division using the Cuisinaire rod, which comes in at 5B. And she told me, I noticed that you talked about the beaded number line first. Of course I would, because it's the best tool ever. But I think that Cuisinaire rods run a close second. So Annalise, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about Cuisinaire rods.
Great. Thank you so much. And I will put in the document that'll be shared of resources, links to my on-demand workshops on them, because you can use them for fluency, problem solving, and all your core standards. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely love them. So let me show you the power of these. So first of all, they are colorful. They are, the way I begin with the kids is I have them build a staircase and I have them find one of each color and put them in order from smallest to largest. I do not use these with the numbers on them. I'm only doing this right now for you because I know you're not familiar with them, but I do not use them because they're great for building number sense. That if what do you know? If I know the 5 rod of yellow is the yellow middle one, I can reason what 6 and 4 is, but you got to give me that chance. Don't cheat me out of thinking by putting the numbers on the rods. So I'm only doing it right now for that reason. But let's think for a minute about the math fact 6 times 8. So if a student doesn't know what 6 times 8, so often our kids go back to what's comfortable, which is usually skip counting. And then often they're skip counting and don't know the next multiple, so they count that one on one by one. So they're doing a hybrid, as Sharon Fuson's document earlier that Nicki shared, of the skip counting and counting. We want them to be in multiplicative reasoning. So the Cuisinaire rods are existing as a group. So it's not a collection of ones. When we have the math tools that are a collection of ones, kids might just fall back on wanting to count them, right? So these allow us to visualize the relationship of the 6 by 8 in the groups are the size of the rod. Now, it's my choice based on the commutative property of multiplication of do you want to think about it as 6 groups of 8 or 8 groups of 6. And I've made both of them here. I did, of course, 6 of the 8 rods, and then I did 8 of the 6 rods, but I've drawn a rectangle here to show you how the area is the same. And in fact, we're building the concrete of the area model with these as well. And so it's either whatever the student wants to think about. So if the student were to think about, they want to think about 6 8s, I would begin with, how many 8s do you know for sure? Like it's built on the asset reasoning of what do they know. So if they know that 5 8s is 40, I can just separate that right away. And I can label like this is 40. We don't have to skip count from 8 up to 40. You know that fact. What do we have left? Well, we have one more. And of course, the heart of this is distributed property of multiplication. I am breaking apart one of my factors. I've chosen to break, in this case, my 6 into 5 groups and 1 groups. But I'm not limited to do that. I can do any breaking apart that I want it to be, again, based on what the students know. If a student says, well, I know that 3 8s is 24, well, then if that's 24, what do we have left? Oh, there's a relationship that 6 groups could be thought about doubling of the 3s. This is the multiplicative reasoning that we want to be encouraging with our students, which can get forwarded to the larger place values, decimals, fractions, and polynomials that they get to in high school. If a student prefers to think about the sixes, again, how many sixes do you know for sure? Because if I know for sure that 5 sixes is 30, what do we have left? Well, we got 5 groups out of the 8 so far. We've got 3 more to go. Do you know what 3 sixes is? And now we're putting those 2 partial products together. So again, it's that visualization concretely that we can connect to an area model that'll progress them all the way through up to polynomials in high school. It is a crazy trajectory. Now, when we get to division, we can be thinking about the quotative meaning of division, where a story context might be, I have 24 feet of wood and I have a project that is 6 feet to make a project. How many projects can I make? So I know the size of the group. So I'm trying to think, like, how many sixes are there in 24? Well, the Cuisinaire rod exists as that group. So I can be seeing how many sixes are there in 24. It turns out there are 4 sixes. Now, I don't leave it there either. What I do is I rotate the Cuisinaire rods and I make it into an area model. The Cuisinaire rods are phenomenal, concrete, to help us build to that pictorial area model that we can draw that, again, can work for whole numbers, decimals, fractions, polynomials. But let's think for a moment about this area model. What we know is the value of those 4 sixes is 24 in all. And I know that this length here is 6, right? And when we think of the division symbol, this is what we're doing. We're having that area of 24. I can visualize once I begin concrete, and then pictorially, I can get the visuals. Then I can visualize when I'm dividing in a multiplicative way, right? Not skip counting, but multiplicative. If I don't know that 6 times 4 is 24, how can I think and reason through that? Well, I have this area model of the 6. When I find out this distance across, like, there is the 4. There, you're visualizing the quotient of the 4. So we have the area that we know is inside. We can connect that to an area model. And again, if I'm doing 24 by a 6, I might say to the students, are there any math facts of 6 you know for sure? Maybe they know that 2 sixes is 12. So I can be writing it in that way. And I have another 2 to go to make 4 in all, another 12. So I have that 12 and 12 making 24. What was that distance across the horizontal distance? Well, that's why I know my answer is 4. So it encourages us to be able to visualize this multiplicative reasoning within the multiplication and division. Power of it, of course, is not limited to just these basic facts. It extends to multi-digit numbers, decimals, fractions, polynomials in high school. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Nikki.
Thank you so much. I told you guys she knew a lot about the Cuisinaire rods. I learned something new today. And that's what we're supposed to do, is learn something new every day. So we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff so far. So I'm going to give everybody a chance. I just want you to breathe for 1 second. Only 1 second, because then we're going to move on. And I want you to write in the chat or just think to yourself, what's something that you're taking away from the first 5 tools that we've talked about? What is a tool that stands out for you? Right. We talked about picture books. We talked about using the 1-inch tiles to teach square numbers. We talked about Cuisinaire rods. We talked about the beaded number line. What else did we talk about? Am I forgetting something? I think I skipped over flashcards, but we're going to come back to flashcards. Visual flashcards, and that distinction needs to be made. So write something that's sticking out for you, or a question that you have. And if you have a question, raise your hand and we will definitely get to you. All right, breathing time is over and we're moving on. But if you're still thinking, you can be right into the chat. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you guys will have access to this. I put this in the chat. I want to give props to the person that made it. Her down here produced by A. Closey, and that's all of her content information, chalkface.net and at the chalkface. And she gave permission that anybody that uses it can share it. So good things are worth passing on. So I just want you to look at this for a second. This is the normal multiplication grid, and then this is the true scale version. Right? Do you guys see that? And then what she's done is she's given you just tons of templates, right? Going from the bottom up one and going from the one that goes, starts with the one at the top and one that starts with the one at the bottom. And then she does one with numbers and squares. It's just too good. Right? So all 6 of these, and then she gives you the templates so that kids can really visualize what they are doing. And so I want you to think about how you might use this with your kids to build conceptual understanding and just really relative magnitude and relative number. Really looking at the numbers in this way. What does it do for your kids? How does it help them? How does it visually give them some information that they might not have had? Right. Here's another one. You see how that grows across. I just think it's so cool. Here's another one. They all do a little bit of a different thing. Here's another one. Notice how it's pointing out the squares there. Here is another one, right? Starting with the one at the bottom. And then here is the final one. Right. So you guys will have access to this, and I just want you to think about how you might use that with your kids. All right, next, I use number lines. Number lines are really important. As you noticed when we did the iceberg, number lines were in there, right? In building that understanding. So I use these. They're right from Amazon. You can get 200 for like $10. I just pulled up one, but this isn't the one I buy. I buy the ones that are 200 for $10. So there's a 60-inch and it's 60 inches on one side and 150 centimeters on the other. So you can do all the multiplication that you need to do within 100 on this. And I'm going to tell you a secret. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but I can't go without saying this. The side for 60 is perfect for teaching elapsed time. When I show teachers how to teach elapsed time, because you're supposed to teach elapsed time, eventually the standard is that they can do it on a number diagram. This is like the only way to start. I mean, you should start with unifix cubes and then move on to this. But if you use a side that has 60, you can do so many wonderful things. You can do start unknown, end unknown, middle unknown. So just think about that. I think I have some videos somewhere on elapsed time with the seamstress tape. So I want to, but we're not talking about elapsed time. That was just a side road. This is what I do with this. I'll have kids like skip count 2, 4. You know what I mean? You guys can. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I use paper, small clothespins, so they could see what it looks like. Because a lot of times when kids are skip counting, they think they're doing a chant. Like 2, 4, 6. They don't understand that there's actually numbers associated with that chant, and that it's a fast way of counting, right? So I use this for that, but I also use it for division, like the same thing I showed with the beaded number line. So I might take 11, and I'll ask the kids. They have their little paper clips. How many 2s can you take out of 11? And they'll see how many they can take out and what they have left. So I love this because you can actually just see it. Right? You guys see that? So you can just see 2, 4, 6, or I could say, oh, we have 8. We're at 8. They'll point 8. And then I'll say, how many 2s can you take out of 8? How many 3s, how many 4s, etc. So just another way of getting kids to work on the number line, right? Now, notice I went from this, which is very concrete, to this, which is more, visual and has the numbers on it, right? So I like using the tape diagram. And so I wanted to show you guys that. Now, the next thing we're going to do is go to our next tool. Our next tool is two-colored counters. And this is Braining Camp, but you would have two-colored counters. On the Braining Camp app, what you can do is you can push invert, and it'll change the color. So I love doing this when I'm teaching distributive property, because I'll ask the kids, so we'll start here. And if you have two-colored counters, they would be doing this by just flipping it. And you ask the kids also, what do we have? We have 3 times 4. All right, what if we flip this? What's another way we can name this now? Or what if we flip both of these? What is a way that we could name this now? Right, and so forth. And you just build different arrays, and you have them flip it, and then you have them write the new equations that they've made, right, using the distributive properties. So I got this out. There's a book called Teaching, I don't know what it's called. It's big, it's a green book, and it's something about manipulatives and elementary students. And I got this idea from that book. And ever since I read that, I've used it, and it works beautifully with the two-colored counters. You start in one color, and then you flip it, and then you have the kids name new equations. They can just see it, and they get it, they feel it, they see it. And so remember, as I've said with some of the other things, and I put the paper in your Dropbox. Because I put circle paper so that they can draw it, and then they can do it with the actual physical manipulatives, and then they can draw it. So you're going through that concrete pictorial, and then they're writing it symbolic, right? So you want kids doing that. Now, this is just a bonus one, but we have others to do that are part of our toolkits. But this is from Polypad, and I love their dot arrangements, because now I can do things like I can tell those multi-step stories. Again, Susie got some oranges, and there were 2 in a box. She got some pears, and there were 3 in a box. And she got 3 boxes of oranges. She got 4 boxes of pears. How many oranges did she get? How many pears did she get? How many pieces of fruit did she get altogether? Right. So I love their dot patterns. And you can change this. So I could put in a number. So I could put in the number 12, and then it'll give me 12. Right. Or I could put in the number 15 or whatever, and it'll give me that number. So that's just free. I just threw that in there. But I really like using Polypad. And speaking of Polypad, you have got to go on there and do the math by heart. You can sign your kids up. If you don't know the Polypad, go on there and look at math by heart. And they have flashcards that are digital. And they have all kinds of flashcards. And they take the kids through a sequence of learning, and they keep track of the data and it's all spaced practice. So they give kids cards, and then depending on what they get right and what they get wrong, they store that information, and then they keep doing it until the kids learn their facts. And you, as the teacher, get a whole database of what kids know, where all the kids are at your class, what facts they've mastered. So you could actually look at 7 times 8 and see what % of your class knows that. So that's math by heart. It's a great resource. And Lisa, will you be sure to add that to the agenda? I forgot to put math by heart on there.
I sure will.
Thank you so much. Now, here's another one that I want you guys to see. A lot of people will use the area model to teach multiplication. Fewer people use it to teach division. So I made a video, and I'm just going to show you the video. And I want you to think about what we're doing in this video. I don't think we put any words to the video. So I set up, I draw it, I draw the grid, right? This is my problem, 137 divided by 11. So I'm setting up my divisor on the side. If you teach 4th and 5th grade, you need to be teaching this to your kids. And now I set out my dividend. I don't have the kids they have to count it out first. And then you have to make a rectangle, right? You line it up. And what doesn't fit is the remainder. So my quotient is what is on top. So 137 divided by 11 is 12 with a remainder of 5, right? That's part of the standards, teaching area model, arrays, and equations, right? But nobody does this for division. People do it for multiplication. Right. So I put the link in the chat so you can go and, really take a good look at that.
We
But
have 3 minutes to go.
I have 3 minutes. All right. I'm probably going to go over a few minutes, but I'm going to go really, really fast. I like place value discs. And actually, place value discs, I think, was like number 10. I like place value discs, and I used to hate them because I thought they were really abstract, but they are very Montessori type. Like in Montessori, you know how they use the stamps? They're very akin to that. So, like, if I want to say to kids, what is 5 times 22? Then I would set it up and the kids would think about, okay, so what is 5 times 20? And then what is 5 times 10? And then like breaking it apart and putting it back together. So I like, and you can use decimals with this as well. This is from Didax. I usually go to Braining Camp, Didax, and Math Learning Center for the virtual manipulatives. We're not going to have time for this, but the links are on there. I love Montessori multiplication boards. And I really think we should bring them into public ed. There's this uneasy division between like those are Montessori materials and these are not, and we don't use them in different places. And I think we should. So this is a Montessori multiplication bead board. Our kids would know how to multiply if we used it, right? You put the multiplicand here, you put the marker here, and then you line the beads up. What the other thing I like about it is it's contained. So beads aren't all over the place and kids can actually see the arrays. But I'm going to give you guys a link to that. And then I also like using the beads. You can do this with pipe cleaners as well, using the bead board to build up, right, the multiplication facts. That's all Montessori. This is all the bonus stuff. And then here's the stamp game. I want to say a little bit about this because they do the stamp game in kindergarten. And whenever I am enthralled by Montessori. So, because remember, Montessori said, what the hand does, the mind remembers. I want you guys to remember that from straight out of Montessori. What the hand does, the mind remembers. We need to do that more in our public schools and in our private schools. So they play the stamp game in kindergarten. I was like, oh man, we need to bring the stamp grade to 4th grade because the kindergartners were explaining how this problem was 1,689 divided by 3. They can explain the whole thing in place value. Right. And there's no like, oh, 3 doesn't go into 1. They don't even think that way. They talk place value. So they're like, oh, we have 1,000. Do we have enough for 3 people? No, we don't have enough 1,000. We have to regroup that. Right. We need to regroup that 1,000 into hundreds. So then they switch and then they get stamped. And then once they get all the stamps switched and everything, and then they put it in groups of 3 and to see what they had. Anyway, I don't have time to go into it in detail. You guys need to watch the video. This is what we need to be doing in 4th grade when we're trying to teach division and in 5th grade. So kids understand it from place value. Right? We don't teach division from place values. Division is the hardest operation to teach according to the research. And we do a pretty bad job of teaching it. So then I wanted to show you guys this. This is something, and I put it, you'll find it in the agenda. I put this here. I know I'm 1 minute over. I'm going to ask you guys, give me 3 minutes. These are new books that I just made. And they're all by the operations. This is a subtraction one, but they're all by the operations and they're like 10, 14 pages. So if you're trying to teach something, you just look at the book and you give the kids the book and they can practice it at home, do it in a workstation, do it in a small group. And there's all kinds of practice. And it has right here on top, the goal and the success criteria of what they have to do. And then in the book, there's things that they make arrays, they do equal group stuff, they play games. There's all this stuff that they can do. So I put the link in there for that. You guys, Annalise, can you put the link to the box in the chat?
I sure will. Your Google Drive link is not open to everyone to access
Oh,
it. So you'll want to change the
open.
document.
Yeah, I'm going to make it open to anyone with the link. Done. All right. So now you guys are going to have access. It's going to be in the box. Here is the agenda. Here is the rekenrek paper, the trackers, the multiplication tables. I'm going to show you the flashcards right now. The 2-color counters that I told you about. These are flashcards that I'm giving you guys. I just want you to look at the flashcards for 1 second. Tell me what you think about what you notice. Well, I'm going to tell you because we don't have time. It's commutative. When you teach kids 5 times 3, you should be teaching them 3 times 5. When you teach them 5 times 4, you should be teaching 4 times 5. That's what they do in all the Asian countries where the kids know their multiplication fact. You teach the commutative property alongside. The commutative property is not like 1 page in a unit of study. It shouldn't be. The commutative property should be taught along the journey. Right. And so you have less facts to learn because think about it. When you get to your 7s, you already know 7 times 1, 7 times 2, 7 times 3, 7 times 4, all the way up to 7 times 6. Because when you learn 7 times 2, when you learn 2 times 7, you learn 7 times 2. Right. So these cards, you fold them and kids practice. Oh, this is 5 times 6, and this is 6 times 5. And there's a visual representation. Right. So I gave you guys those cards in the thing. I also gave you guys these cards. These are really fun. What you do is you fold it and it says, look at it, say the fact. So the fact is, well, that's a square. This is like 3 times 4. And then it says, turn it. And then they see 4 times 3, again, looking at commutative property. So it's like this interactive flashcards. And then I gave you guys just a sample of the equal group cards. And the equal group cards they show like 12 divided by 3, 12 marbles divided between 3 kids, which is what we usually do. But they also show 12 marbles with 3 each in a box. So they show partitive and quotative division, right? And so that's important that kids can do both of those and think about both of those. All right, we're almost done. We're almost done. So you guys have the box. You guys have, let me go to the end. There's a couple of things I want to ask you guys as we get ready to finish. I want you to think about, what is your school doing really well around fluency? Who is fluent? Who isn't? What do you all need to improve? And what have you heard today that will help you on your journey? So that's what I want you to do, is to type in the chat, what have you heard today that will help you on your journey? Think about how you're going to get started. If you have questions, raise your hand and we will get to you. This is my website. It's going to be on the agenda, and you can go there and just put in like multiplication and then put free, and there's tons of free stuff. You could also sign up and become a member, but this is a site only about fluency. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And in December, we're building a whole fact family night around fluency. So I'm super excited. And we just built a Fluency Intervention Academy that we're getting to upload within the next 2 weeks. And it's all part of the membership. But there's a bunch of stuff that's free. So you can go on here and get all kinds of resources, all kinds of games for all of the operations. I'm also giving you guys a 3-day free trial membership to that website. So I put in the link. It's 3 days from the day you activate it. Okay. And then here are the fluency booklets and what they look like. So I'm really proud of these. A lot of people have been getting them, and so you can see, you print them out in different colors. And then as the kids, go through learning their facts, they go through the different booklets. And that way you have evidence that they've actually worked on that fact. All kids are not going to do all books. You don't have the kids do the books or the facts that they know. And I would do the facts in the sequence. Like I would do the facts 0, 1, 10, 5, 2, 4, 8, 3, 6, 9, and then 7 for multiplication. So happy mathing. I hope you learned some stuff today. Here's the QR code. But the QR code is also on the agenda. And stay in touch. I hope you guys learned something. I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle, and I want to thank Elise for helping me today. I appreciate your help, my friend.
Oh, my privilege.
Awesome stuff. Great job today for both presenters. Awesome information. I see the chat is blowing up. So make sure in the chat you stick around because we do have a giveaway. And I believe our friends have a code as well that they'd like to do a little sharing and a couple books to give away as well.
Oh, so, yeah, we do have books.
Yeah. So stick
Elise,
around
will
for
you
that.
pick one and I'll pick one.
Awesome. So I'm going to suggest that you share in the chat your biggest takeaway, what resonates with you, maybe something that you plan on implementing, something that will catch the attention of our presenters as they're scrolling through the chat here. And we'll be picking 3. It sounds like 3 winners. We've got a couple books and a code. So get those into the chat. Stick around for a couple minutes here. And I'm going to quickly just once again thank our wonderful, looks like the wrong screen's sharing there. Let me go to
I'll
here.
stop.
Let me do this and do that. And let me thank our wonderful speakers once again, Dr. Nicki Newton and Elise Record for the amazing session here today. They have been a part of past summits. This is our 5th annual free virtual summit throughout the entire weekend. We know it is difficult for folks to get into all 40 plus sessions. So remember that there are upgrade options. And again, the small amount is allowable or helps us to put on this free event for over 20,000 educators from around the world. So we do appreciate those who do purchase a ticket to help us not only fund this year's event, but also help us to prepare for next year's event. So awesome stuff. You can find those tickets inside the dashboard of the summit. So summit.makemathmoments.com, where you got to this event. Also, inside that summit dashboard, you'll notice that there are the opportunity for attendance certificates. So check that out as the weekend goes on. And as I've mentioned, and as we're going to continue mentioning in all our sessions, if you do have any struggles along the way, no panics. We will help you to work that out in due time. So there's quite a few participants. So I'm sure there'll be a handful of issues along the way, but stick with us. No sweat. We're going to make sure that you get what you need on your end. If you haven't yet, make sure you grab your device and get yourself subscribed to the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast. It's on all platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And you'll bump into some episodes where we've had today's presenters on in the past. So 3 or 4 episodes amongst all both presenters. So definitely go dig in to our 300 plus episodes that we have available on all of those platforms. And last but not least, we do have a giveaway for you here today. So we're going to be giving away an awesome Braining Camp 1-year license, as well as we've got a few books to give away as well. So I'm going to let our wonderful presenters go ahead and select some friends, and I'll be doing the recording over here to make sure that we get those prizes to the right people.
Kristen Schlichter. I hope I said her last name okay. Kristen Schlichter, Schlichter.
Awesome. So Kristen, if Kristen, you respond to any of the emails from this summit or reach out to support@makemathmoments.com, what are we giving Kristen? Is it a book or is it the Braining Camp license?
I was going to give her the book. That I was choosing the person for the book. So the Fluency doesn't just happen with multiplication and division. Our new book, hot off the presses in May, with Dr. Allison Mello as well. The 3 of us wrote that together.
Awesome. Fantastic. Awesome stuff. And how about our next winner? Maybe Nicki.
I have 2 winners that we're going to give away 3 books. Helen Grant and Gwen Rowe.
Helen Grant and sorry, the second?
And Gwen Rowe, ROWE.
Awesome stuff. So we've got 3 books that are being given away, and we have one last prize, which is going to be our Braining Camp license for a year. Braining Camp license, free of charge. Who's it going to be? Let's go back to Annalise for this one.
Oh, good gracious.
Hmm.
I thought you were going to do that one, Kyle.
I tricked you. I tricked you.
That's pressure. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I see
Okay.
someone
All right.
who wants
So
it.
Ari Sparkman. I need the Braden Camp license, capital letters. Ari Sparkman.
Awesome. Spark.
And remember, everybody gets 3 months free.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. Fantastic. So to Kristen Schlichter, Helen Grant, Gwen Rowe, and sorry, I didn't catch the first name of the last winner. Sparkman, I have as the last name.
Ari, A-R-I-E.
Ari, awesome stuff. We'll get the license. Friends, if you hit reply on any of the emails and let us know, hey, I'm from Annalise and Dr. Nicki's session, and I was a winner and I won the book or I won the license, we'll have that so that we can get in touch with you and make sure that you get that awesome prize. Friends, it has been a complete honor to have some time to dig in with you here today. And we are super excited to carry on the summit here. We've got a session running now and another coming just around the corner at 2:30 p.m. So make sure you get to that dashboard and get into your next session. Thank you so much to our presenters. You're awesome. And we appreciate you so much.
It's an honor to do it.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Kyle.
Yes.
I have one question for you. Can I get a copy of the chat?
Of course. Yes, absolutely. And actually right now, before you go, because you're a host, you can actually grab it now if you want. If you go
I was trying, but
yeah, if you click on, I have to remember myself how to do it. If you
3 dots at the top, you can say save chat.
Boom, there it is.
Okay.
Awesome stuff. We are looking forward to our next sessions here, friends. And we so appreciate you again. Looks like the room is starting to empty. I'm going to end this room. And hey, feel free, my friends, to hop into another session.
Oh, I plan on it. So many amazing. This is next level set of people this year, Kyle. Holy cow!
All right,
the whole lineup.
Hey, we're trying. We're digging. Awesome. Glad to hear it.
The whole lineup. Awesome. Take care.
Awesome. Take care, friends.
Bye.
Thanks so much.